north of Wall Street. And that was why, once she'd recovered, she didn't yell and she didn't argue. She smiled and graciously accepted the position. With her in-your-face attitude, she figured her stint as Dear Vivi would last about a day. But people obviously enjoyed having their butts kicked because her column had been an overnight sensation, which was why Dear Vivi's responses of late had gone from a butt kick to a light tap on the behind. She had no intention of being an advice columnist for 40 years like Hilda Branch. One way or another, when Vivi's probation was up a few weeks from now, she was getting her old job back. As the line in front of her moved forward as slowly as at Bagel Bagel on a Saturday morning, Sky's assigned ringtone jingled from Vivi's carry-on. She'd been expecting her call. Their mutual best friend, Maddie McBride, had already checked in with Vivi on the cab ride to the airport. The three of them had been friends since their first day of college. As they were only children, technically that wasn't true in Vivi's case, but it's how she thought of herself, they'd become the sisters they never had. In the past 18 months, Vivi's sisters had abandoned her. They'd moved from New York City to Christmas, Colorado. Maddie and Sky said they fell in love with the small mountain town. Vivi knew better. They fell in love with the town's most eligible bachelors. Vivi no longer believed in a one and only, but even she had to admit, if there was such a thing, Sky and Maddie had found theirs. She missed them. New York wasn't the same without them. But that didn't mean she'd cave to their pleading and cajoling and move to Christmas. Vivi didn't do the great outdoors. Give her concrete, skyscrapers, bagel bagel, and roaster's coffee down the street any day. "Where are you?" Sky asked the moment Vivi put the phone to her ear. She sighed. Her best friends expected her to bail at the last minute, and Vivi knew why. Chance McBride. She did her best to avoid the small town of Christmas when there was a possibility he'd be around. Since his father was getting married next week, the probability that Chance would be there was high. Then again, he'd been home only once in the last 5 years. Vivi knew why he avoided his hometown, and that knowledge was probably the reason her voice came out more raspy than usual. A security line at the airport? "Vivi, your flight leaves in 20 minutes. Checking the time on her phone, Vivi glanced at the ticket in her hand and grimaced. She was cutting it kind of close. "Relax, I'll make it." "Don't tell me. You were working on your column and time got away from you. You're a workaholic, Vivi," Sky said in an exasperated tone of voice. "The week away will do you good. You can relax for a change." Sometimes it was annoying how well Sky knew her. Only Vivi hadn't been working on her column before she left her apartment. She could dial those in. She'd been checking out a couple leads for a story, one that would knock her editor's socks off and get Vivi back her job. She returned her attention to Sky. "Relaxing? I thought you guys said you needed me there to help with the wedding." "Vivi, Maddie and I will have nervous breakdowns if you don't come. We can't do this on our own. We're new mothers," she said, imitating Sky's angst-filled voice from 3 weeks ago. "Hey, I did not sound whiny and hysterical." "Yeah, you kinda did. But don't worry, I'm riding to the rescue in my big white bird." 10 members of a seniors bowling team shuffled forward. "I have to take off my boots. See you soon." "Okay, but don't, take off security. We really do need you here. Nell's driving us insane," Sky said, referring to Nell McBride, who looked like a sweet little old lady if you ignored the flaming red streak in her white hair. And no one should ignore that devil-red streak. The older woman was the biggest shit disturber Vivi had ever met. Vivi knew this because 18 months earlier, she and Maddie got caught up in one of Nell's schemes. In the end, everything worked out well for Maddie. For Vivi, not so much. She was still in recovery mode, which was the reason why she'd agreed to go to Christmas in the first place. Like Heartbroken, Vivi had a man who'd taken up too much space in her heart and head, Chance McBride. She opened her mouth to respond when Sky said in a voice tinged with nerves, Speaking of Nell, this was all her idea, okay? So don't get mad at me and Maddie. We had nothing to do with it. Notthing." Vivi froze, balancing on one foot as she took off her rubber boot. What was Nell's idea? "Gotta go, Evie's crying," Sky said, obviously using her